So you want to know about friendship. Honestly, I feel like Allah made women with like the inherent need to want to be around other people and to have community and things like that. So we're going to dive into the nitty gritty today about friendships. And I'm going to be answering all the questions that y'all asked on Instagram. How do you know if your friends are good for you? How do you get past jealousy and envy in friendships? How do you get past friendship heartbreaks, bro? Like, so go grab your tea, go grab your coffee, go grab your water, and I'll meet you back here in a little bit. Assalamu alaikum, my loves. My name is Fatima. Welcome back to my channel. Today's the first video that we're posting in a little bit over a month, honestly, because your girl needed the break. We are going to start with, oh my god. And before we jump into today's video, I wanted to show you guys what my friend got me. Samira, she's so sweet, y'all. Look, she gave me these couches. In Somali, we call them fadiyat bed, but they're so cute. Look, they're in my office. And I was like, let me put it together today before we record the video for the girls because they're just so freaking cute. And I love them. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna jump into the first question that y'all asked me on Instagram. How do you build healthy friendships without competition and envy? I'm gonna give y'all a little preface. Like, my friendships are by no means perfect at all. And I like them that way, right? For me, there's like a healthy level of conflict that needs to happen in relationships because how else do you know how best to serve one another, right? Like, we're not out here making manuals to give to other people to teach them how to be friends to them. And I think a lot of times, like, we learn through the things that happen in our friendships with people to really know like how we're supposed to be there for each other. With that being said, I think number one, first and foremost, is knowing that, especially when it comes to envy and competition and stuff, someone else's blessing does not take away from your blessing.
Girl, if you don't say it again for the people in the back.
Someone else's blessing does not take away from your blessing. It really will not at the end of the day. Making dua for the person when you see that something is going good for them can really like soothe your heart personally and prevent you from being envious, right? I think jealousy to a certain extent is normal, right? Every now and then you might see someone have something, you're like, wow, mashallah, like, I love that for them, but I also want that for me. You know what I mean? Like, maybe your friend reads Quran really well, or maybe your friend is really good at talking to people and you're like, hold up, I want to be able to have that ability myself. So you acknowledge that it's, number one, an amazing blessing for her, but number two, that it's something that you can accomplish as well. And that's really the difference between jealousy and envy. Envy is like, oh, you got something good and I don't want you to have it. But jealousy is like, okay, you got something good and I want it for myself too. You know what I mean? Looking back on my life, I remember instances, especially in my early relationships, because really, you know, that's where a lot of the trial and error happens, right? A lot of the trial and error and like how you learn to be good to other people happens in the really early relationships that we have in our lives. But like looking back, I remember having friendships and like the jealousy really getting to me. You know what I mean? It's not something I'm necessarily proud of, but at the same time, I'm not too embarrassed to bring it up, right? Because these are things that people might actively be struggling with. I'm the oldest of 8. And so with my parents, you know, coming over to America and escaping the war and this and that happening, like the struggles that I had growing up with my younger sisters really like transferred over into the relationships that I had with my friends and the people around me. And so eventually I had to get to the point where I'm like, hold up, I can't let the insecurities that I experience get in the way of me having beautiful relationships with the people around me. Like, I gotta work on them. It's not nobody else's responsibility to do that. So do whatever work it is that you need to do to be yourself, not only for yourself, but for the people around you, right? Because if you are someone who wants a blossoming sisterhood in a community, in a village around you, that requires a degree of self-sacrifice in the sense of, okay, you know what? I got these things I gotta work on and I want to be better for myself and better for those around me for the sake of Allah. Personally, that's what I would say about that. Because, you know, I think oftentimes we forget that the relationships that we had growing up were our first teachers. And if they wasn't right, our relationships later might not be right. But as long as you're alive, it's never too late to work on yourself. Alhamdulillah. With that being said though, sometimes there's other people who have envy towards you and who are extremely competitive with you. That is only your problem as long as you allow it to be your problem, right? And what I mean by that is, I had a friend, for example, when I was younger, and I'm sure everybody has had a friend like this or know somebody who's had a friend like this. And she didn't want me to be friends with other people. And honestly, at the time, I'm like, you know what? Like, I didn't know it was toxic what she was doing, but she really was envious. She literally did not want me to be friends with anybody else for whatever reason. She was working through her own demons. Okay. I had to let that friend go eventually because it got a little bit too toxic, and that's okay to do. I think we need to normalize normalize friendship breakups, and we need to normalize allowing ourselves to outgrow people. Because a lot of times as women, we're expected to sacrifice ourselves and our mental health for the comfort of relationships and for the comfort of other people, and we don't necessarily have to do that. Like, as long as you're giving that person their rights Islamically, you are good, okay? You are good. You are not required to keep yourself in a friendship that is bringing you down, that is tearing you down, that makes you feel unhappy, that makes you feel insecure. You ain't gotta do that. Because I've had so many friendship breakups in my life, especially really early on. Like, alhamdulillah, not as much anymore, because your girl's 27 and I got a little thing going for myself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I think this is the perfect transition into how do you handle a friendship breakup, which is another question that y'all asked me. I know you already know this, but first of all, start by remembering that this is not the end for you, inshallah. This is not the end for you, as much as it might feel like it. One of the girls asked me, how do I handle a 10-year friendship breakup? Bro, someone who has been in your life for 10 years has probably seen you go through so many different phases, has been with you through a lot of stuff. And whether it's 10 years, whether it's 2 years, and even for some people, whether it's like a couple months, having a friendship breakup is never a fun thing. But know that it is never the end for you. The way that I look at it is kind of like, maybe I asked Allah to forgive me or to make me more patient, or maybe I asked Allah to remove people in my life who are not good for me, and this is His way of doing that. Doesn't necessarily mean the other person might be a bad person. Sometimes things happen, sometimes miscommunication happens, sometimes we just outgrow people, and that is okay. Maybe you might come back together later on in your life. Like, one of my best friends right now, I met her many years ago. We just reconnected last year, alhamdulillah, and it was like when we were friends earlier on in our lives, like, we were cool and we were like really good friends, and we even considered each other best friends at a point. But it's like now that we are 27 and we reconnected after years of not talking, our friendship has blossomed even more. Why? Because we didn't have the time in between, when we weren't talking, to really work on ourselves and to improve who we are and our characters and all that. And alhamdulillah, I can't imagine my life without her now. Like, if I go to Jannah, when, inshallah, I go to Jannah, I'm gonna be looking for her. And she better be looking for me, Layla, okay? Don't be kicking it too much without me. Sometimes when people leave our lives, it might be Allah answering a dua that you made. And that's something that I think we need to remind ourselves often of, especially myself, girl, because I know it'd be hard sometimes. Because sometimes you're like, oh my God, ya Allah, I don't see the wisdom behind the situation. Like, this hurts a lot. I don't see the wisdom behind it. And then you get to the other side of whatever it is that is testing your capacity, right? Because sometimes Allah puts heartbreak into our lives to increase our capacity for love, to increase our capacity for compassion, to increase our capacity for strength and resiliency and reliance upon Him. Sometimes you get to the other side and you're like, hold up, subhanAllah, like, I learned so much from this situation. Like, I feel like a new, a stronger, a better person. It makes me think of, like, how in Islam we're not supposed to regret things that we've done in the past, in the sense of like saying like, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's too late, right? The past is already the past. All you can do is fix what you do in the future, inshallah. But with that being said, like, I wonder how much of that is also related to the fact that maybe you might regret a friendship breakup that has happened, but Allah put blessings in there for you that you might not be aware of until Yawmul Qiyamah. You get what I'm saying? So thinking about friendship breakups, so kind of like that helps me really like deal with the heartbreak that's accompanied by it. Because Allah knows how painful it can be. So the next question is, how do you make friends, especially when you're in your 20s, right? Because sometimes it can be a little bit more hard. You graduated college, you're in the work field, you're not being around a lot of other Muslim women. You might not even be around women at all if you work in tech like me. How do you manage making friendships? I love this question because I feel like I truly figured it out. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So you really got to put yourself out there. You got to put yourself in situations where you are meeting new Muslim women, okay? I'm talking. Maybe they have a halaqa or a study group at the masjid. See if there's any volunteer opportunities in the city. I'm talking maybe you start, a social media profile and start communicating with other girls online. Maybe you see a funny reel online and somebody comments on that reel and you're like, oh my God, that comment was funny. Let me go DM them. Put yourself out there. Okay, one of my friends, I met her on YouTube, y'all, which is the funniest thing ever because she posted a video and then I commented on her video and then she commented back. And then she followed me on social media. And then we just been friends ever since. And honestly, she's such a good friend to me. Alhamdulillah. Like, some people, you just know that your soul met their soul before we came to this room. Ayan, if you're watching this, I love you. Just know that we have to normalize putting ourselves out there, number one. And number two, we have to normalize people not being for us. Maybe you put yourself out there and you hit somebody up and then you end up finding out, hold up, maybe we're just not meant to be friends. But that's okay. Getting comfortable with the discomfort in that situation is going to help you find your person, inshallah, or your people if you want a village. So with that being said though, like honestly, I think shooting your shot will go a long, long way. Oh my God, I should have mentioned this first. Number one should have been making dua to Allah and being very explicit. Like, ya Allah, your girl is lonely. I don't got no friends. Or maybe you do have friends and they're just not good influences for you. So you say, ya Allah, like you see the kind of friends I have right now. I love them to bits, but they're not encouraging me towards good. Please put people in my life who are going to be good friends to me, who I can kick it with, who I can laugh with, who I can cry with, who will be there for me in my times of need, who I can be there for them in their times of need, who make it easy to be in relationship with others. Like, ask Allah for that and be sincere. The same way that you are willing to ask someone else for help when you need something, ask Allah for help even more intensely, and especially for something related to this, because when you make dua to Allah, what is He doing for you? He's gonna be the eyes with which you see, your feet with which you walk. Like, He gonna facilitate the rest for you. Like, sometimes we forget how capable Allah is in facilitating things as simple as bringing good friends into our lives for us. So do me a favor, scratch that, do yourself a favor, and make dua to Allah to bring you some good friends. So the next question I was asked is, my friends are all married and have kids and don't have time for me anymore. Do I just get new friends? Whoo, girl. Sometimes life be lifing, okay? And so if you feel like you need more friends and you have the capacity to withstand that, don't let go of the ones that you got now, especially if it's not toxic, right? Because sometimes people just be busy, and you might not see each other as much, and that's a normal part of life. But what I will say is, if you have the capacity for more friendship, definitely seek that out. Because you are definitely allowed to get more friends who can invest more time in you if that's what you need. So the next question is how to trust and think well of sisters that we meet. And y'all, subhanAllah, I just want to thank the person who asked this because I think this is such an underrated question. And honestly, I'm so proud of you for asking it because it really shows that you want to increase your capacity for trust of other people. The thing for me is, y'all already know that I have not had the best luck with friendships. I've been in friendship groups where I felt like I constantly needed to prove myself or to constantly be validated that they wanted me to be part of the group. One thing that I really learned from a lot of the different relationships that I've had in the past when it came to friendships is that everybody has trauma that they carry, including us. And so I often ask myself, like, how much of the trauma that I've experienced might impact the way that I see people? Because I think that's such a valid question, right? Like, for example, my mom grew up during the Somali war. Like, she was literally 13 years old. She really struggles with trusting people, just as much as a lot of other Somali women in her generation do as well, right? Like, they even have a saying in Bravanese, which is the language that I speak, that says menza ni chirenza, which basically means friends are razors, right? Like, your friends are meant to cut you. I want to acknowledge the fact that a lot of us have probably grown up in households where friendships were something that were like taught to us as impossible to have, incomprehensible even. And so that's something that I want us to acknowledge when it comes to trusting people and realizing that sometimes there's internal work that we have to do in order to, build that trust in other people. But I will say the number one thing that I do, and I think it's so beneficial, it might help you as well, is remembering that we can make excuses for people. For example, maybe you're talking to a new friend and y'all are texting and she takes a while to reply back. She might not be disinterested in you. She just might be busy. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's little moments in the relationships that we have with other people and the interactions that we have with them where we can make excuses for them so that it can soothe our heart, but also make sure that we are being our best to them, right? And so I want to challenge you to remind yourself to be conscious of your thought process as often as you can, because that is going to be the number one thing that's going to help you, inshallah. And making dua to Allah, and consciously and constantly doing the work that it takes to just be a good friend to other people. Now, I will say sometimes people be doing a little too much and you do got to distance yourself from them. I do want to mention though, like, sometimes when you first meet people, they might not be their full selves in front of you. Very, very rare that people are going to be 100% their authentic selves when y'all first meet. And so naturally, you are not going to get the full version of themselves, right? People need time for us to break down the walls and the barriers that we put up to protect ourselves from other people. So remind yourself of that as well, inshallah. Because it might be that you might be getting a part of somebody that ain't even their full self. And honestly, I'm thinking about myself too. Like, even me, depending on the day and how busy I was before I'm going to an event, I might be able to have a full-blown conversation, or your girl might be tired and might have her social battery drained. And it's not that I don't like you, I'm just tired. Okay, so that next and final question is, how do you know when a friend is good for you and not just out of convenience? The reality of it is, you're going to know if that friendship is just out of convenience for you if when you guys are not in the situation that brings y'all together, you not talking no more. My litmus test, I know a friend is good for me when they can remind me, number one, of Allah, right? Like, my best friends are all Muslim, and I don't mean no shade to any non-Muslims. It's just that, like, when you're friends with Muslim people, it's like you can properly like advise each other when it comes to like life issues, because the other person knows your purpose in life, what your main life goal is, to get to Jannah, make Allah happy, and they can properly advise you when it comes to stuff like that. Like, I want to be able to have stimulating conversations with the other person about Islam, about, you know, the deen, whatever. But at the same time, I want to be able to kick it with the other person. They got to be funny, right? Like, knowing that they are compassionate, that they're empathetic, that they make excuses for me. And I know when people make excuses for me, for example, I'm not always able to attend all the friendship gatherings with my non-married friends, but I know that they still make excuses for me when I'm too busy, because they don't get upset with me. Like, they'll just be like, girl, just communicate. We be alright. Like, you're good. You know what I mean? I will say though, I think the number one thing that other people can do, and this is something that I do myself as well, is asking yourself, why are we friends? Like, that will give you your answer, inshallah. So with that being said, that's pretty much today's video, inshallah. But I need your help. So I was thinking, inshallah, the next video I want to make for y'all is going to be about marriage and, you know, getting married young, especially because I got married at 19, alhamdulillah, and have been married now for 8 years. But I was trying to escape the toxic household that I grew up in. And I know a lot of other girls are in very similar predicaments. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask me any question that you want. Maybe it might be for you. Maybe it might be about me. Maybe it might be a question that answers something that will be beneficial for someone else, inshallah. But with that being said, drop your questions below and I got you, inshallah. And we're going to be back on schedule with releasing weekly videos on Saturday, inshallah. And I think a lot of them will be like, you know, kind of like this, kind of chit-chatty, kind of like, you know, good vibes, you know. We'll see how it goes, inshallah. I want to thank you all so much for being so supportive, for holding me accountable, for reminding me of my purpose, for keeping me going. Honestly, like, I love you all so much, and I pray that I continue to be able to make these videos for you all and to be a good example to you all, inshallah, because at the end of the day, if I'm not giving y'all content that is going to make you feel like you're in a safe space where we can talk about these topics that are important to us and work on getting better one step at a time, like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And so I'm grateful to y'all for giving me a third space. I pray that my platform is a third space for y'all. I love you so much. I'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.